We are down to the semifinals, the conference finals of the World E-Hockey League playoffs for Season 1. Hi, everyone. T-Sibs with you. And, of course, cast of characters as usual tonight. We've got Fort. We've got Lucky Puckers with us as well. And a couple of other folks will be joining in. Doc Marshmallow has graced us with his presence tonight. And we also have, one of the co-founders, Best There Is here talking with us in the pregame. And we thank you for coming on, Best. Appreciate you taking some time with us tonight. We've got the conference finals going on. And, of course, the second week of the playoffs was had to have its story, just like week number one, right? Lots of stuff going on. We all understand it's certainly been talked about enough with Vancouver and Anaheim. But I want to try and put a bow on that right now and just kind of close it out with you here and just explain just some of the thought process that you had while this was going on. And the kinds of things that maybe you guys learned from this, and what you're going to take into season 2. What was your thoughts while all this was going on? What was your main feeling about this situation while it was happening?
Well, first of all, Amanda's decision. I understand why she made the decision, and we love Amanda, and even though we had to do what we did, that's no pun on Amanda whatsoever, because she does a really great job. But it did give Vancouver, in our eyes, an unfair advantage, and basically why we did what we did, because it's the playoffs, and one team can't have more advantage than another. Just as simple as that.
And obviously, you said it over and over again. Look, this was the decision that was made. This is how we went, and you went back and said, look, we're trying to make this right, and here's the option, and here's where we're going to go. And and I think a lot of folks felt like you guys did what you can to correct it. Obviously, there are going to be detractors who are going to have a problem with the initial decision, but I think a lot of folks have to realize, not every decision is going to be the perfect one made out of the box. And I think my takeaway is you guys tried hard to make it right in the end.
We did. We really did, because we are, I don't know how to put this, a very fair league. Like, we're not going to give any team an undue advantage. I don't care who says we do this for this and this team, and we absolutely do not. And it's going to stay that way as long as me and Scott are in charge. So, well, it's going to stay that way with Doc, too.
And go ahead, Fort. You got a question?
Keith, okay, so I kind of off of that, I guess, a little bit, like, are there any big changes besides Doc coming in as a commissioner next season that are that you're looking at, or is everything gonna kind of stay the same?
We might go with my stats and use the sports engine as just a website, and use my stats for the stats. I'm in communication to get our own website built, but that's going to take time. You can't do something like that overnight. So we're going to have to do something for now. And seeing how you can't remove players on Sports Engine without it completely wiping their stats, we figured my stats would be a better way to go. And we're using a drop form this season that will track IP addresses.
Gotcha. Well, you mentioned Doc getting involved, and Doc is with us now, and you've been in a few different leagues, and you've saw what happened in the league we both came from recently, and you saw this league start out. You've had some experience, and you've seen what's happened in season 1. Give me your assessment of how you think things went in the World League for this first season, and the types of things that you expect to happen in season 2, which is also a summer season.
Yeah, season 1 I think it was a success on some fronts, and some fronts I think we could do better. Like, there was a lot of second tagging, which is unfortunate, but
Sure.
There's no way you can get rid of it completely. I mean, it's going to happen. We're going to try with the drop form to cut down on that, which I think it will. A lot of shit happened too. Like, that league chat in the Discord has caused a lot of issues, a lot of arguments, and Connor is heading up a new Discord moderation team that's going to be solely watching the Discord. So shit like in season 1 doesn't happen in season 2. There's going to be like 4 or 5 guys solely just watching Discord. Let's see what else happened this season. A lot of shit happened.
Yeah. Well, let me ask Doc. What do you think? What's your main goal going into season number 2 now, as a commissioner here? What's your main goal with this summer season coming up?
My main focus is to find ways to kind of add parity, or what's the word I'm looking for, to even the playing field, like make sure that there's not such stacked teams. I want to try to avoid that. I want to review the whole bidding process, the prospects I think we want to move away from, or find a better way to do it. And also ensure that the punishments are being handed out in an even fashion, like consistent with the rule book, So I want to guide my head of discipline to maintain a level head and just be objective. So that's my focus.
And the cutting down on stacked teams, we made a large step towards that by only allowing teams to protect 7 people, including the owner next season.
Right. Yeah, we certainly saw some people. Obviously, you're always going to get people who would be like, okay, well, I think we should have 9. I think we should have 10. And I think the number of 7 is to me is a good way of being able to say, look, you might be able to stack a team this year. You might be able to stack a line for next season, but you're going to have to rebuild from there. And I think this gives other teams a chance to see the other talent, to maybe incorporate them into their team next year. And I'm hoping the players understand that too. I think that's always been a problem, Best, and I'm sure you see this too. You get a lot of guys who have this club mentality and they want to play league as a club. And if it happens to work out that way, that's great. But the lengths that people go to try and get all their friends together to play on a league team is amazing.
It's almost to the point of ridiculous. Almost like it.
Right.
They will do anything, literally. Well, I wouldn't say literally anything, but almost. In the world of gaming, anyway.
Let me see. Yeah, we have Lucky Pucker here with us as well, and I'm sure Pucker definitely has a couple of questions he'd like to get in as well.
Yeah, for sure, Doc. You mentioned the rules, and looking at the disciplinary committee and having them more balanced and level-headed. Do you feel like the rules are strict enough? Are there some rules that are needing to be, have harsher punishments? What all are you going to look at as far as the rules go to, find that happy balance?
So I definitely want to find a happy balance. I'm not contrary to what people may think of me, I'm not very ban happy. I hate banning people. I much prefer going the route of suspensions to give people a second chance, or maybe a third chance to prove that they want to be in the league and play. If they don't want to be in the league and they quit, that's whatever. But if you got people who just make a mistake or think they can get past the rules one time and they get caught and punished and they want to stick around, generally that's a player you do want to keep around. I've had, in my experience, many players who have come back from suspensions or even bans, and they become more fair players, you know?
Absolutely.
Because they don't want it to happen again. So I prefer suspensions. So I'm going to review the rule book, and we're all going to review the rule book and make the decisions. Do we want to make things a little harsher, or do we want to protect that like keep the ban as a sacred thing and go more with suspensions until somebody hits that capital offense?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the capital offense. So what would be an example of a capital offense that we could kind of look forward to seeing? Like if I did X, what's going to be what would I have to do to earn a capital offense next season?
Obviously anything where it involves threatening somebody's life, threatening somebody's family, using or what's it called where you release somebody's information, stuff like that. Absolute capital offense. There's a few others. In my eyes, forging evidence to try to get somebody suspended or something, that's a capital offense because that just means you're absolutely not trustworthy. I'm trying to think of some other ones. It's hard to say. I'm not a big fan of banning people from the game for their speech unless it goes past that line of, you know, where you go from chirping to just straight threatening someone or offending, absolutely intentionally trying to offend someone, you know? So.
Keith, I had a question. I know that there have been a lot of talks around the bidding process that had went on this year. It was kind of a snafu. You know, you had a goalie that doesn't even play. I think he's a prospect now, but he went for like $10 million last season. So, you know, going forward, is it safe to say that either we won't have that much confusion, or are we, you know, or is the league itself going to kind of go more towards a draft this next season?
Well, I know the bidding last year wasn't the greatest, and if it were to occur again, you can assure it would be very refined. But I think a draft would be suitable, unless we found a better bidding software than what we used last season. That's also partially up to Doc as well. So,
Doc, any thoughts on that?
I wouldn't mind seeing a hybrid, going with a draft for all these prospects we have in the league that didn't get signed, and then having bidding on all the players who did play and were not protected. In my eyes, I think that would be a more fair way to do it.
That's interesting that you guys mentioned the draft. If we do the draft, can we expect the lottery to be put in place so that the bottom feeder teams all have a chance to potentially get that first coveted overall draft pick?
that would be up to Doc as well.
I am in favor of that.
Yeah, I think it'd be good because we are a simulation league, and they, that's something that they do in real life. So, I would love to see us mirror the real life NHL in that aspect.
Keith knows me, and he knows that I like to look up what the real leagues do, like what the real NHL does, and I shoot ideas off of him, like, hey, what if we do this to try to match this as best as possible? Just because, in my eyes, it makes the most sense. I think it would be a good idea and it would, adding that draft would also offer that draft pick thing for next season in the trades.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a dangerous thing to do if you have these owners who don't plan to own next season, might throw the future of the team away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we have to we have to consider that very carefully. Do we let people trade draft picks? And the future of next season, the following season, really, it gives the value to those draft picks, So we would have to look forward a few more seasons before we consider that. So that's a discussion we're going to have. I know we're planning to have a meeting about the next few seasons anyway, so it'll all be discussed.
Absolutely. Now, let me point out something else too while we're talking about all this.
Sure.
Next season, this happens. I don't want to say it happened all the time, but it happens somewhat this season that Scott, Armando, or myself, make a decision, and someone doesn't like that decision, and they try to go to one of the other ones and try to get them to give them a different decision. I just want to point out that you might as well not even try bother doing that next season. Whatever Doc says, Doc says. So don't come to me trying to get me to overturn it, because it's not happening.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, the biggest problem that I think sometimes, and look, I've seen it in other leagues that have been around for a while, where management, one person has a different message than the other one, and they wind up having to back it up because they haven't been on the same page from the beginning. And it sounds like, again, you have. Best, you already, you have your ideas, your basic outline of what you want to do, but you've also talked to Doc about what his jurisdiction is, and I think if you come at people with one message, I think that's a huge benefit, because then you don't get, then you don't undermine the people that you've put in place, and I think I've seen that in other leagues, and I think that could be the number one problem. In a lot of places where there isn't consistency amongst the people who run the league, and I think if you're trying to do that, that's a bonus.
Yep, and that's almost exactly what happened to where we came from.
Sure.
Where we left, yeah. But we trust Doc, so it's, like I said, it's pointless to even try.
Right. I'll tell you what, we'll if we get some more time, even between games, if you're around, we'll talk more about what you got coming up for season 2, or if we have more time before the first game start here. But let's spend a little time talking about the playoffs themselves, and we'll take a look at the playoff bracket as we see it now. 4 teams left. You've got in the West St. Louis and Vancouver. In the East, it is Detroit and Montreal, and I want to talk a little bit about the West first, because I think the East might be a little bit more interesting series to look at. I think we saw it a lot after the last round last week. A lot of people feel like St. Louis is a shoo-in. And without even talking about the Eastern Conference, I thought Anaheim was going to be more in control of that last series. I thought offensively they'd be able to do more. Vancouver struggled in that first round defensively, and I feel like they came back in this second round and played a much better defensive game and really had control of these games that they won. It wasn't really, where they struggled to stay on top. They played well, Vancouver, and no matter what happened in the series, they actually, just really I felt like they commanded the action. They were in control of the pace of all the games for the most part, and Anaheim struggled to play their game. And I'm impressed with how well Vancouver played defensively in this series.
Yeah, I think Vancouver's going to have to do a lot of the same. Obviously the news around the league is St. Louis is getting Rapel back this series. A huge addition. To get back right at probably the best time that you could get him back. Vancouver, I think they're going to have to play tight. They're going to have to kind of minimize their mistakes and really keep things keep it rolling, keep the ball going, and get out on top quick. As we've seen before, St. Louis, if you let St. Louis put 2 up on you quick, there's really no turning back from that, and there's really no getting ahead of St. Louis at that point. So I think Vancouver they've got an uphill battle coming up, but I think that I don't want to say that St. Louis is in 4, that, oh, yes, they're going straight there. But I think that if Vancouver doesn't show us something here tonight, then I think, maybe St. Louis is that shoe-in team that everybody's talking about.
Hey, Pucker, Fort mentioned Rapel being back tonight. How big of a advantage is that to get someone like that back in the lineup?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. Rapel is a very talented winger forward. His offensive prowess is second to none. His ability to find a way through the defense. You can put 5 guys in front of the net, and this guy can find his way through all 5 of them. So having him back, it just adds a depth to St. Louis I think that's going to be really, really hard for Vancouver to find a way to overcome. Vancouver, to win this, they're going to have a bend, don't break defense. They may have to let them have the outside, but they've got to stay in front of the net, and they've got to, when they start coming in, they've got to box them out as best they can. And then they got to find a way to put up some offense, because that's the thing about St. Louis is they're the total package. They can play defense, they can play offense, they can do it all. And so Vancouver is going to have to keep St. Louis to low scoring, which nobody's been able to do. Mm-hmm. And Vancouver is going to also have to be able to put up some points. Now, Minnesota surprised the hell out of me last series, and they were able to put some points up on St. Louis, and was actually able to hold St. Louis to a couple of goals. And that's exactly what Vancouver is going to have to do. It's going to have to get nitty. It's going to have to get gritty. They're going to have to put bodies in front of the net and get some lucky bounces.
Yeah, and you made a good point, Pucker, and I want to ask Doc about this. We saw Minnesota actually play well defensively, even in a couple of games that they lost, and they won a couple. They stole a couple at late in the third or in overtime, but then they did that by playing very defensively, by waiting for the opportunities to come up in the other end when it happened. They weren't forcing the offense. They just really concentrated on filling that box and not letting anything happen in the slot right in front of their goaltender. And it seemed to be somewhat successful. With Vancouver's offense, though, is that a smart way to play, or do they need to try and play a little more offensively, maybe spread out the St. Louis forwards a little bit, maybe, so they're not committing so deeply in the other zone? What can they take from Minnesota and use to maybe beat St. Louis?
I like the strategy that they use, though, because as a goalie, the slot is like the area I hate the puck to be loose.
Sure.
And I know white knucklers. I've played against him many times. He will pick up any garbage in front of the net. If you give him the slot, he will score. I know Rapel will do the same. I know Vancouver's got Metcalf. Metcalf I've played against. He's a great player. If they can get him the puck deep in the zone, that's what they need offensively, because he loves to play behind the net, and that's where they need to take it. They need to take it behind the net and slow down their plays, and they need to clog the slot defensively. And I know St. Louis they're going to take their time with it in the offensive zone, so they need to have maybe a box +1 pressuring somebody at all times. They can't just all collapse around the net. It'll work for a little bit, but eventually St. Louis will break that. So they need to put a little pressure in their own zone, try to stop them. If they get the lead first, they definitely need to trap them, because you can be sure that St. Louis is going to do the same thing to them.
And Beth, just to get your, I don't know how much of everything you've gotten a chance to see, but Is St. Louis unbeatable? Does Vancouver have a chance? What percentage would you put on it?
Well, I wouldn't sleep on Vancouver, but I would. Now that they have Aubrey back, probably 60-40, I would say, because Vancouver's good, man. They swept our team in the first round like it wasn't even a challenge for them almost. Like it was, they're good. I would not sleep on them.
Before we get to the East, everyone's prediction. Doc, what do you see, St. Louis, Vancouver? How does this end?
Well, I mean, St. Louis is absolutely the favorites, but Vancouver's been surprising a lot of people, and it's hard to say, but I think it goes 6 in favor of St. Louis, but I'm thinking in overtime 6.
Pucker, what's your prediction?
Hot take, St. Louis in 4.
Fort, you back yet?
Oh, we're doing games. I say 5 games.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, if Vancouver doesn't come out tonight and show us that they want to be here and that they want to be in this position, then I think St. Louis in 4. I think it's really going to ride on tonight. If I really had to say, I would say, a possible 7-game series. But I don't want to guarantee it. I would probably say, I think I'd have to agree with Doc and St. Louis in 6.
Dog Chow's here now too. What was that your pick that you made, Dog, at 5?
Yeah, I had St. Louis winning in 5.
Okay, and Bess, what was your pick on this?
St. Louis in 5.
Okay, let's head over to the East now. A few minutes before we hopefully get a game or two started here. Still waiting on some teams to get ready here. So. East, Detroit, Montreal. We saw what Detroit had to do, getting past Philly and Pittsburgh. Certainly a tall order, and both series they seem to have pretty much in hand. Of course, beating up on Philly 2-0 in the first 2 games, and then getting a little bit better of a challenge against Pittsburgh. But certainly Detroit seems like they've been in control the whole way along, and I feel like Montreal's been the same way. They swept Toronto. They beat Ottawa 4-1, so only 1 loss in the first 2 rounds. And while maybe Detroit seems to have a lot of good names that people know, again, this is a situation where Montreal may not be the team everyone is necessarily talking about, but in my mind, they've got as good of a chance of winning the series as Detroit. And to me, seeing the series go 6-7 wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, this series, I could almost guarantee a Game 7. You've got 2 strong teams that both, Montreal at the beginning of the season, the huge comeback story that everybody's been talking about, they shouldn't have even made the playoffs. As I've said and as Fapper has said all season, they've been riding on a chance. Like, we have a chance to win. They're not riding on a guarantee like St. Louis or even Philadelphia was. And we've seen how far they went, and so I don't expect that. I don't expect this to be a cakewalk for either team. I know they're both 2 really good teams, but I expect a good series, and I expect Montreal to come out with the win in the series.
Pucker, let's get your opinion on these 2 teams. Again, Detroit has a lot of weapons up front, but Montreal seems to have been able to have Toronto and Ottawa, and Ottawa played a hell of a series against Columbus, but they seem to have complete control of those 2 teams that they played. Can they do that against Detroit? What do they need to do to keep a lot of offensive weapons for Detroit in check?
Yeah, this is going to be one of the funnest matchups that we're going to get to see in this whole playoff bracket. Montreal's coming into this game, and they've been pretty well firing on all cylinders on their offense, and they've been putting up about an average of almost four goals a game. Detroit's going to have to find a way to stifle that offense. Detroit has the capability, as they've shown in the regular season, to put up put up goals, but right now that's not something that they've been able to do. They've struggled in the first two rounds, and so Detroit's going to have to find a way to get their offense really clicking like they have in the regular season, and two, stifle this Montreal offense. Montreal is the Cinderella story, and honestly, I've gone back and forth on this series a few different times. I do think this is one of those ones that can definitely go deep, so I'm going to say Game 7. I'm going to go with my bias with Detroit.
Okay, Doc, your thoughts?
I'm excited just about this Stanley Cup race in general because I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, and back in 2012 we had the Harbaugh, where we had Harbaugh versus Harbaugh, you know? Mm-hmm. And right now we're looking at a potential Morena Cup. So I'm excited about that, but I think Montreal might be they're the Cinderella story, but I think they might be the villain in that story for the Morena Cup. They might be the reason we don't get to see that because every team I've seen them come in, they beat teams that it looks like they have no business beating, and they do it handedly. I think they're a much better team than a lot of people give them credit for, and I think they have a chance to take it, but I do think it would be a long series and an absolute upset, but I'm going to call it 7. 7 for Montreal.
All right, and let's see. Who haven't we talked to yet? Dog, I think, right? We haven't gotten your opinion on this yet.
No.
And you've been around to see these games last week and, again, see a really strong Detroit team. What should they be concerned about with Montreal? What could be the problem for them?
I'd have to say their goaltending and defense for Montreal. That's going to be a problem for Detroit.
What do you pick? What do you think is going to happen in this series?
I think it's going to go deep, and I'm going to say, like Doc said, a Morena versus Morena Cup. I'm going to say Detroit in 7.
Detroit, okay, in 7 against Montreal. All right. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody right.
Yeah.
All right. We've got some games hopefully starting up soon. We got a few teams getting ready, not quite ready yet. The Blues have everybody. They're almost readied up, and I think Vancouver is also close to to having everybody set up as well. So hopefully we get some games to look at here shortly. Montreal was doing some warm-up there. I'm sure pretty much ready to go after a couple of warm-up games. So we are getting ready for round 1 here, games 1 and 2. Again, tonight, we thank you for joining us. T-Sibs with Fort, Lucky Pucker, Dog Chow with me as well. We might get Doc Marshmallow back in later on. And also with us, Best There Is, one of our co-founders of the WEHL joining us as well, and he'll stick around as long as he can and get a chance to talk to us more about, hopefully about the league in between games, but also give his commentary about what he's seeing on these games as well. So while we're waiting for this to happen, I think, Best, I think you gave us some idea of your feelings about season 1 and basically how things went. Talk to me about how much work you figured was initially going to take to get this to happen, and after doing this pretty much for a full season now, what's your takeaway about the workload that it takes to get a league together and then to try and make it successful in season 1?
Well, it's first of all, it's difficult to even get enough people to start a league, let alone admins and a domain. You need a website, you need a domain, you need somewhere to store the rosters, somewhere to do the stats. Some of that's free, but the majority of it is not.
Sure.
So so that you got to shell money out of your pocket, which is not a lot, which is we love doing, by the way, but it's not easy. It took us some planning and a lot of time to get this going, like a lot of time.
Sure.
We searched up and down for the right domain. It took us like a week to find the right logo. It took us like almost 2 weeks to even come up with a name. Like, it's a name that's going to stick with you, so you got to make sure it's right. But it takes a while and a lot of effort, man. It's not, I don't know, it's a lot of effort.
What's the feedback been from most of the players? Obviously, what you see in Discord, you see the malcontents, of course, but what's been the general feedback? I've got to believe most people have been, that's what I've been hearing, and I've only been around for a couple of weeks observing what's going on in the league, but I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that I do know, and there's only a few that I do know in this league that I've known from other leagues. What's been the feedback to you from players? Has it been relatively positive?
Yeah, for the 95% of it has been positive. I have gotten messages over a few decisions that we made over the course of the season, like Aubrey and Caden suspension and the Anaheim and Vancouver that incident. But other than that, the feedback's been great. They love the Sports Engine. They love the app, the ability to RSVP on there, and you can upload your logo or whatever. You can upload a logo. But the only problem with Sports Engine is that you can't take someone off the roster and put them on another roster because it wants to wipe their stats out. That's how their system is set up.
Okay.
And so now we have to find something else that doesn't do that, which is My Stats or this new thing we're looking into, which is called League Republic. It's a UK company, but their website is gorgeous. Yeah, been positive, most definitely.
And what about managers in the league? How have they been responding to what it's taken to get a team together? The whole process, obviously preseason, the process during the season. What's the feedback been from managers of teams and how things have worked so far in season one?
Almost all the feedback I've gotten has been good. We've gotten recommendations from owners and players and stuff on what would make it better and all that, and the feedback's been good, and there's really good owners here too, mind you. Like, they put a lot of time and effort into their team, and I see them doing it. We all see them doing it. So it's been good. They're trying.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We've got a game coming up here between St. Louis and Vancouver, and we're gonna head on over to it. Looks like this one's about to start. So the West is getting going to start with. The East is getting together. Detroit and Montreal almost have their teams together. So we'll take a look at this one. We'll take a listen to.
Metcalf's taking it.
Looks like Vancouver taking a penalty right off the bat, and St. Louis is going to get a 2-minute power play. So a little bit of an issue, I guess. Vancouver getting in on time, and St. Louis will get a power play here for 2 minutes. See how this works out. Eavesdrop in on the audio broadcast for a little bit. And always tough to give a team like St. Louis a power play right off the bat in a game that, you're trying to limit their offensive opportunities. Now in front, good shorthanded play there. Wraparound attempt. Vancouver almost putting a shorty up there.
It's dumped in. A chance to clear. Trying to clear the zone.
We're going to be even strength.
That was a great job. Shot back down. More time off the clock.
So far, St. Louis not getting much going on this power play. It's almost over. Vancouver clears down, and not much of an opportunity for St. Louis there. Good defense by Vancouver.
Just past 3 minutes have gone.
One thing I like that I saw St. Louis do is kind of settle their boys down and say, hey, this is going to be a tough battle. Be ready for it. So they're not taking this team lightly. So looking forward to see how they play.
5-hole.
And that quickly, Vancouver able to come right back off the penalty kill and takes the early 1-0 lead in this one. Good pass right in the slot.
That's exactly what Vancouver needs to do, is find a way to get that offense when they can. And now they're going to have to go on defense and limit the St. Louis's high-powered offense.
And again, another quick goal.
Oh!
This is a huge start, boys.
And just the goaltender looked like got a little stuck. So
Huge start.
Thought maybe his defenseman might have gotten in the way, his lefty, but no, he just was not able to get over in time. And Vancouver finds himself ahead 2-0. And another chance right in front. So this is the kind of start that Fort was talking about. Can Vancouver get going right away and make something of it and get out in front? And they've been able to do that so far.
Yeah, definitely a huge start for Vancouver here. You know, I kind of wonder if this addition of Aubrey coming back is, you know, maybe it's not working out as much as guys kind of thought. You know, have they been practicing together? Or, you know, I mean, from what we're looking at, it doesn't seem too much as if they have been.
No, Vancouver's moving that puck really nicely.
I think this is certainly the best we've seen anybody play against St. Louis. Minnesota had some success.
I'm going to say 2 goals in the first 5 minutes just doesn't happen against St. Louis. It's surprising, and it's exactly what Vancouver needed.
And St. Louis comes back right now, halfway through the first, after a dump in and a bad pass behind the net, trying to clear it out, but puts it right behind the net to St. Louis forward, and they get themselves on the board now, 2-1.
Got ourselves a game.
Seeing a lot of loose play in front of the net by both teams. Not an awful lot of collapsing in there. I think teams are trying to spread their players out, but it's resulted in 3 goals in the first half of the first period. And there's another St. Louis goal, and quickly, just like that, tied up at 2.
And that's what Vancouver did not want to see. St. Louis's high-powered offense, they're just not going to stop. They're going to be able to put the puck in the back of the net almost at will. So we'll see how Vancouver responds now.
Smart recovery by Orr.
Cover, Dan, cover.
Are skating it up and neutralized.
St. Louis on the attack again.
Swept on to Johns.
Detroit and Montreal tried to start up. They lost it. And so they're trying again. As you see, St. Louis again. Now 3 straight goals by the Blues have put them up 3-2 in this one. And you see St. Louis using their point, getting it back on D.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could have predicted 5 goals in the first 14 minutes of this game. It's definitely a high-powered one for sure. I kind of expect these boys to settle down in this next period and tighten up on the forecheck and not see as much offense as we've seen in the first period.
Vancouver's had more odd-man rushes and guys walking right into the crease. And St. Louis has scored more on setting up plays. So good passing there by Vancouver, but not able to make it connect. Been some wild action in this game.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it looks like Vancouver's got St. Louis chasing a little bit here.
Another good save. Another one off the post, too. So a lot of action, a lot of activity. And as a goaltender, I can tell you this is the kind of game where you just shake your head and hope that it settles down.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is a connectivity issue, if there anybody having tough connections.
First period coming to an end, and a pretty wild first period. St. Louis up 3-2 after one. Montreal, Detroit look like they're about to start. You see the shots 10-5 in favor of Vancouver. We'll switch over, take a look, and see whether or not we got something going here with the Detroit-Montreal game. If everybody got in, hopefully they have. And we'll keep you up to date on Vancouver, St. Louis as soon as they get started.
The game, Montreal and Detroit, is starting right now.
And so we have that up on our screen. Let's see. I think nobody's quit out, so I'm assuming we'll be okay here. We've been given feeds from goaltenders in both of these games. Looks like someone's going to be taking a penalty if they can flip it over the board. And so I think Detroit's going to wind up having to take one here. Or is that Montreal?
I think it's Montreal. Yeah. Montreal forgot to enter their lines, and so they owe Detroit some penalties.
Okay, there you go. We'll take a look at this one for a little bit. Third period has started. St. Louis and Vancouver. The Canucks driving a little bit here. St. Louis still ahead by one, though, 3-2. We'll get back to that one as soon as we take a look at this game for a little while here and see what happens on this power play.
Let's get it out. Let's try to play defensively until it's killed.
Nice try. Get going. Got to get going a little bit sooner on that. No, you should be full now. Yep.
Oh, okay. Go.
All right, we're good. Let's go now, boys. Let's get it. Oh, he's giving up short. You saw that, right?
Boards. Oh, shit.
Still there. Nice try. Nice try.
Teams are even now, as you see. Detroit not able to take any advantage of that one. Montreal getting an opportunity on a backhander.
It's all right. You could take it. You could wrap it on that next time and look for a pass out front.
Meanwhile, over in the other game, St. Louis just had a penalty shot and scored on it, so they are up now 4-2, 12:33 left to go in the second period.
Yeah, and offense. St. Louis's offense is doing exactly what we expected it to do, putting up those high-scoring games.
Yep.
Oh, just wrist it.
Yep. Nice. There it is out front.
Is there any surprise at all about how high scoring it is? I mean, is this, obviously St. Louis has the capability of it.
Nice job.
We see Montreal right away taking an early 1-0 lead in this game.
Awesome,
is anybody surprised at all about the amount of scoring that we're seeing in this St. Louis-Vancouver game?
I think the amount of scoring that we saw in the first period is absolutely surprising between both teams. To see St. Louis put up 4 goals in 2 periods is not something that we haven't seen before. In fact, in the first game of the last round 2, they put up 11 goals, and they have the ability to just go ham on these goalies when they get the opportunity. So St. Louis is not really surprising, but to see Vancouver come out firing on all cylinders was definitely not expected.
Detroit getting some opportunities. Good goaltending so far. Montreal, and I think that's kind of what Ferd had said. It may have been Chow as well that had some input on that one, on their goals right there.
Let's go, boys!
And Montreal taking a 2-0 lead now. Meanwhile, Vancouver has just scored. They are now down by 1, 4-3. Why don't we switch over there, and you could see goaltender was way out of his net, and Vancouver able to take advantage of that one.
Going. We're not stopping.
So Vancouver now draws to 1. Detroit finds himself down in this one 2-0.
Montreal has really impressed the heck out of me the way they've come out. They're fired up. They're calling out what they see. They definitely are doing exactly what I said that they could do, which is they're able to put up, 4 points, 4 goals a game is their average, and they're on pace to do just that. Detroit's really going to have a big second and third period if they want to come out of this one with a win.
Checking out Vancouver and St. Louis again in the final 2 minutes of the second period. Definitely seeing a weaker defense by St. Louis in this game. Weaker than we saw. I mean, obviously, Minnesota wasn't putting up a lot of offensive struggle there that they had to worry about, but certainly we're playing a little bit better than, they weren't giving up. They weren't putting a lot of pucks on net, but, Vancouver certainly a much tougher team, but St. Louis has struggled playing defense more in this game, it seems, and despite all that they've put up on the board, they're struggling to hold on to a lead right now. Meanwhile, we're back over to Montreal, leading Detroit 3-0. We'll take a look at that for a little bit until Vancouver and St. Louis get moving again.
Yeah, it does look like St. Louis is having a hard time moving the puck out of the zone. Lots of turnovers leading to odd man chances. The defense is going to have to tighten up on that for sure, especially if they want to finish this with a win. And I think that's the big takeaway for St. Louis. They just need to tighten up on the giveaways.
And Vancouver just put up another goal to tie it up at 4.
Oh, jeez.
Early the third, and we're going to keep on this one for a little bit. We'll try and give you a bit of a split screen in a minute to get both games up there for you, and we can maybe, since they're so close in activity right now, and get a chance to look at these two teams play and see them side by side would be fun to watch. We'll have that on as soon as Detroit's back up and running again with Montreal in their first game of the series.
Be interesting to see how many odd man chances Vancouver's had. It seems like every time they come down the ice, they've got an odd man chance.
And that game is back up and running, Detroit-Montreal, so we'll go split screen, show you both games right now, as Montreal still with a 3-0 lead in theirs, and Detroit seemingly having a lot of trouble trying to find really good opportunities. They've had a few, but certainly Montreal's been more in control of the pace of this one. A lot of what we saw against Ottawa, where it was how they wanted to play and not what Ottawa wanted to do. I thought they'd struggle trying to get Detroit to play that game, but so far it's been all theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely set the tone. Montreal's done a great job of dictating the way this game is played. Detroit's going to have to find another gear and really step up it on both sides, on offense and defense.
And let's hear again from Ray. His teammates love playing with him. All you have to do is find some open ice and keep your stick on.
Montreal just doing a good job of putting pucks on net, too. And again, we've talked about that constantly the last couple of weeks in the playoffs. You're playing better teams. You're going to struggle finding really good opportunities much more than you will during the regular season. So sometimes you just need to put the puck on net and try and make things happen that way. And I think we're seeing more of that. Montreal certainly is doing that. In Detroit, we see now really trying to get something going and doing the same thing.
St. Louis needs to capitalize on this power play here. This is a big one.
St. Louis has a minute and a half left on theirs. It looks like Detroit's about to get a power play of their own to try and get back into this.
Yeah, Detroit wants to find a way to at least end this period with at least one goal. That way they can go down into the third with only being down 2 goals.
St. Louis really putting on the pressure. Half-minute left to go in their power play, and another penalty coming up against Vancouver. So a 2-man advantage for 30 seconds here for St. Louis, and that is going to be awfully hard to defend. Need to clear it here. Just trying to kill some time. Good forechecking. But now St. Louis back the other way. It's a 1-man advantage. And now a good quick shot, but a great glove save. 1:17 left to go in there. Power play. Meanwhile, on the other side, Detroit, Montreal, as you see, still Montreal leading this one 3-0. Detroit with a power play, but not getting a lot of good opportunities.
One adjustment I'd like to see St. Louis make is when the defense is struggling with all these odd man chances, the forwards got to come back in the neutral zone. They got to play more neutral zone trap and help their defense out. They've got the offensive firepower as long as they can keep the puck out of the net to win this game, but they haven't really adjusted to that, and I've been kind of waiting for them to do that.
You see Montreal going up 4-0 now, halfway through the second. We'll keep an eye on that game, but let's switch back over to Vancouver, St. Louis. You see 7:45 left to go in the third. 4-4 will keep on this one. It's been an action-packed game and a tie right now.
This Vancouver game is definitely not the I guess the outcome I was expecting. You know, as I said in the pre-show, I said Vancouver really needed to come out and make a statement, and with 6 minutes left, a little less than 6 minutes left, they are really they're really making a statement and making it known that they deserve to be here.
And I think it was Best that called it and he said, "You don't want to sleep on this Vancouver team. They're really good. You gotta play well against them." And he's being proved right here.
St. Louis getting another power play now. 4:36 left to go in this one. In this third period with the game tied, and another opportunity for St. Louis with the man advantage. Let's see what they do.
This is a way to get your teammates frustrated with you. That's another penalty that he's taken. Puts his team shorthanded again. To Johns. Johns has been a playmaking machine so far. He's got 2 assists. He's been fabulous. Fires. And a save. Oh, he was lucky to make that stop off that screenshot. Keeps and covers.
Another power play coming up for Montreal. They still lead 4-0. 5:07 left to go in their second. I didn't realize they were a period behind, so we'll get back to that one in a bit.
St. Louis plays a puck possession game, and when it's a tight and you've got a man advantage, I'd kind of like to see them put more pucks on net. But that's just not their style. They like to go for the quality over quantity.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed in the past couple of St. Louis power plays, Vancouver has really played a tight box, traditional good power play, and I mean, it's been good all the way around for Vancouver. I think, as I said before, was the addition of getting Aubrey back really that much of a game changer, or was it kind of, okay, we've got him back, but let's play the game we have been?
I think the latter.
I think it's one of those things for sure where you get a guy back, you haven't gotten to play with him in a while. You got to reacclimate him to the team and kind of get back on, get that chemistry back. It's kind of tough. The rest of these guys have been playing together for, 12 weeks now, and Aubrey's been out for, 3 weeks. So, these other guys definitely have the advantage of just getting to play together the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, especially, you know, coming down to this point where you've made it this far through the playoffs without him, you know, do you continue, do you put him in, you know, and kind of mess up some of the chemistry that has gotten you this far, or do you, you know, be like, all right, look, we've made it this far without you. Well, what do you want us to do?
When you've got a thoroughbred like Rapel, you got to get him in, and you're doing your team a disservice if you don't. At least this way, in the third round, they've got some time to work on some things and get that chemistry back to where they need it to be before they go into the Stanley Cup Finals if they make it to the next round, which everybody is expecting them to.
Montreal still leads 4-0 now after 2, and we see St. Louis and Vancouver going to overtime. Game 1 tied up at 4.
I still have to give the nod to St. Louis. St. Louis has been here before. They've been in 3 overtimes in just round 2, and we're able to find a way to win at least 2 of the 3. St. Louis hasn't been putting a lot of shots up, but when they do have the puck, they're getting high-quality chances. I think St. Louis will find a way to bear this puck and in this first game.
Detroit-Montreal started back up again. We'll keep an eye on that one for now. And I got to tell you, hybrid theory has been in net and has played incredibly well tonight for Montreal and has helped to keep Detroit after 14 shots off the board.
Sibs, you're a goalie. Don't say it.
Well, I tell you what, I'm impressed with what I'm seeing because he's not making a lot of moves, and we see Montreal now go ahead 5-0. Meanwhile, the other game started back up again. St. Louis, Vancouver, overtime with Vancouver driving.
Yeah, this first game for Montreal. Detroit is all but over, barring a miracle comeback by Detroit. I don't think they have the gas in the tank to get it. They're just going to have to regroup and find a way to win the next couple of games.
Yeah, I'm really surprised about Detroit losing like this.
The Blues in possession as they travel in their own end. At an angle to Johns. Taken away. Couldn't retain possession. Passing one off now to Ozings.
And Vancouver's doing that trap that we were talking about that I'd like to see St. Louis audible to, but definitely seems like Vancouver's done the better job of adjusting.
Offense has been a strength today for both teams. We are tied at 4. Orr's lost another one. And he takes the heat off by clearing. He won the race, and there's no icing on this play. Sets up Shaw. Johns in his own end of the ice, hoping for another zone here.
I think this is some of the better offensive play we've seen Vancouver do in this playoffs. They've really been good about getting a shot on. Their passing looks a lot better than I've seen in other games. Not that it's been bad, but they're just passing a lot quicker. I think it's almost like St. Louis has forced them to speed their game up, and it's worked for them so far.
Yeah, and it does look like that Vancouver's going for the Hail Mary, and they're just connecting on all of those Hail Mary pass, the dump down the ice, the slap pass down the whole length of the ice. That's been working for them, and I don't think that's sustainable, though. I think that if they continue to do that, I think they'll struggle because the accuracy on that is so hard to land those passes consistently.
In overtime, you know, as a goaltender, one of the worst things I could see are shot after shot coming after me. All you need is one slip up and the game is over, and that scares the hell out of a goaltender.
Mm-hmm. And you can't play scared. This is playoff hockey. If you're playing scared, you're not playing your game. If you're not playing your game, then you're putting your team at risk to lose the game. You can't play not to lose. You have to play to win.
Back into the opposite corner.
8:25 left to go in the third. Montreal up 5-0. That one all but over.
That one dropped back into the opposite corner. Directing that one to Alexi. Didn't handle it very well. Free puck. Looks ahead to start something. Stood him right out. That one comes right on his stick. Not very long, but good. He banks a pass ahead. Smart recovery by Orr. Vancouver's lugging it around in the neutral zone. Gathered up by Alexi. Great work with the stick. Got it back.
Vancouver getting opportunities right in front.
And the play's been blown dead. I'm not sure why. Maybe the referee lost sight of the puck. At any rate, we're going to have a face-off.
Looks like St. Louis caught a lucky EA break right there with a stoppage.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how the ref lost sight of the puck. I could see it fine, but then again, I'm not a referee, so
I think he lost sight of it when it went through the boards somehow.
You know the saying, I'm blind, I'm deaf, I must be a ref.
Oh, there's another puck going through the boards. So there's a lot of EA magic going on right now in this overtime, which is never good.
no, I mean, obviously, as as a defenseman, my biggest fear is, getting that EA magic to go their way and not your way. So hopefully they kind of can figure something out here.
Well, I think that style that Vancouver's been using, but putting pucks on net over and over again, if they continue to do that, EA is going to reward them. It's just the nature of the beast. The momentum in this game is real. St. Louis has got to find a way to either get more time on attack or more pucks on net, or they're going to find themselves hurting here in a second.
Power play now for Vancouver. 1:09 left to go in this first overtime.
And this is a huge penalty kill for St. Louis. They need to play tight and pray to God that EA doesn't mess with them.
Vancouver able to move the puck on the points, but St. Louis has really collapsed in the middle. Now some opening.
One thing you hate about putting all those bodies in front of the net is any puck on net can go in. If you're screening your goalie, he can't see it, and the puck sometimes just finds a way to trickle behind the pads.
And they've won that draw. Banked right ahead. Nicely received at the point.
Another shot on net off the post on a backhander on a rebound. Another penalty coming up. It's going to be a 4-4 now, so this will open up the ice a little bit and then give St. Louis an opportunity.
Yeah, this is where you just don't want to turn over the puck. When your team has the puck, you need to maintain possession as best you can until you get a good scoring chance. Whatever you do, don't turn the puck over, because more than likely it's an odd man chance going the other way.
Like Vancouver just did.
Now it's a 4-on-3, even more ice open, more room to maneuver for Vancouver. Minute left to go on the power play, and an errant pass.
And this is where the putting pucks on net may hurt Vancouver. They need to skate to the open ice. They need to use as much of it as possible and find that high-quality chance. But they've been in the habit of putting the puck on net. It's hard to get away from that. When you've got these more open ice chances, you got to take advantage of it and get more quality shots.
Watching the final 20 seconds of Montreal beating Detroit now 6-1. We'll close that out until the game's back. Now 7-1.
Wow.
And we're gonna have double overtime in that other game. I mean, first night in the third round, like double overtime. Like, all right, I can deal with this if that's how it's gonna be all every night.
How insane would it be if our predictions are completely flipped? Montreal wins it 4, St. Louis goes to 7.
This game winds down. Montreal will win this one 7-1 as the other game is facing off into another OT. And we'll watch double overtime now. St. Louis and Vancouver. Congrats to Montreal for taking game 1. Both teams have had their opportunities on power plays for sure in this game, but even with the high scoring, it was 4-2 early, slowed down, better defense. Both teams tightened up and have really cut down on the really good opportunities we saw in the first period.
Man, I'm not even playing in this game, and watching it, my heart is just racing. You know, because I mean, you don't want any team to, to go down the way that, off of an unlucky bounce, or as we've seen in the Vancouver series, last series, I believe, in the Pittsburgh Detroit series, Pittsburgh put one in their own net and kind of killed the series for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't remember. Do you remember what game it was, T-Sibs?
Not offhand. It's one of the things that goes when you get older, is the memory.
Absolutely. I hear that.
One of the things.
I'm in trouble because I've got a bad memory and I'm a lot younger than you, T-Sib.
Sorry to tell you, it doesn't get any better.
Oh, yeah. I'm only 30. I'll be 36, and mine's terrible.
Good opportunity for St. Louis there. They throw one on net. A deflection almost sneaks past the goaltender, but face-off now deep in the Vancouver zone. 11:30 you see left in the second overtime.
I must be ahead of you, Chris.
I want to say thank you to Dakota. I'm gonna butcher your last name, man, but it's Lebauncain for subscribing to the YouTube channel, man. Thank you.
Very nice. More subscribers. If you're not already subscribed, hit the button, like the stream, get alerts from us whenever we go on the air. This is your one-stop shop on the YouTube channel for all the WEHL broadcasts, the shows on the weekend, the live games. It's all right here. Halfway through the second overtime now, still tied up at 4. And now a golden opportunity in front of the net, but just not able to get a handle on that puck. 2-on-1 back the other way. And Vancouver able to capitalize finally on an odd man rush. And they take the 1-0 series lead in double overtime. It's Vancouver beating St. Louis 5-4.
Wow. Holy shit.
And the curse continues. Whoever I vote for, it goes the opposite way. I'm sorry, St. Louis. I still love you.
Can't sleep on Vancouver. I'm telling you. Told you.
Yeah, Beth called it pregame. You do not want to sleep on Vancouver, and they proved it. Proved the reason why right there. Congratulations, Vancouver. Great game. St. Louis, you need to tighten up, buddies.
28-15 shots on goal you see in favor of Vancouver. And so double overtime it takes Vancouver finally to win this game, and game 2 starting hopefully in about 15 minutes. But guys, I think we saw maybe one of the best games we've seen in the playoffs, perhaps the best game so far. Two teams that came out flying and then saw that they were bleeding and both of them decided to stop the bleeding. It got defensive and went to 2 overtimes before it was finally figured out. And Fort, you talked about Vancouver needing to make a mark right away. They had to come back in this game, being down 4-2, and still wind up scoring the last 3 goals to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver went up early. They went up 2 goals quick, and that was kind of the statement. They came out quick, and they put the puck in the back of the net early, and they made the statement that said, "Look, we're here to play. We're not here to be pushed around." They got down. They got down a little bit, and they had to come back. But comeback stories are always the best. So hopefully we see the same thing going forward.
Yeah, this is definitely way more exciting than I expected it to be. Got to give props to Vancouver. They definitely look like the better team out there. St. Louis just looked like they were chasing the puck a little too much. They need to settle down in the slot, find a way to get that forecheck back that we've seen this whole playoff series. I hope that they're not taking this team lightly because they absolutely cannot. Vancouver's earned their right to be here in the 3rd round, and St. Louis has got to tighten up. Otherwise, St. Louis may get disappointed.
What's the big takeaway from the way that Vancouver played this one? To me, I didn't know if getting into an offensive struggle with them was going to be the best thing for them, and somehow they were able to keep pace. They struggled early on, but they were able to come back and find some opportunities. And like I said earlier, to me, Vancouver was able to move the puck almost as quickly as St. Louis was doing, and I don't think we saw that last round from this Vancouver team. They are playing at a much quicker pace than they did before, and sometimes when you try and match a team to their game, a lot of times you're going to fail because if that's not the way you've been playing, it's tough to make that adjustment. It looks like Vancouver has been able to make it, and they made it after the first period of this game and came back and won.
Yeah, I think the key was that they were connecting on those long stretch passes, and I stress that those are not sustainable. The chances are slim that those get through, but they were getting through in this game, and it worked out to Vancouver's benefit. We saw them try this style of play early or in the first 2 rounds. So it'll be if they can keep connecting, I think they'll have a good chance. But I think if St. Louis makes the adjustment to where they've got at least 3 guys back, if not 5 guys back, those long stretch plays won't be effective. And they'll have to find a different way to get the puck in deep.
Meanwhile, in the other series, you've got Detroit and Montreal, and Montreal just really dominating that one 7-1. Let me get a question in to Best on this one. You're running a team that just got beaten in the conference final 7-1. How do you help them get past this game and have them see it just as another game? What do you tell your guys?
We win and lose as a team. Go back out there and win game 2. And honestly, you shouldn't have to say much. They should be fired up already at the fact that they lost the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
They should be raring to go.
From what you saw in that game, it looked like Montreal had the pace. What was your take about the way Detroit played?
I was really surprised. I've heard a lot of hype about Detroit going to the Cup final and whatnot, and wow, I was surprised. But I think they're going to come out a lot better in game 2. I don't think that's going to happen twice. I don't see that happening twice. And if it does, I'll be shocked.
Pucker, what do we have for lineups for game 2 of that Detroit-Montreal series?
Let me get right back to you. I'm actually been trying to work on that. In the first 2 rounds, the guys were real good about saying that this line was for this team,
right.
And I've just got a bunch of names right now, so I'm working on that as we speak.
Okay. So hopefully we'll be able to get you the lineups on that shortly, give you some idea of what's going on. But I almost feel like, when something like this happens, Dog, that You know, you could have a team that sticks to their game plan, or you could have a team that decides, okay, we're going to go with a different line this game because we want to try and at least take one of these two. Maybe Detroit thought, maybe their initial thought was that they weren't going to have to, that maybe we weren't going to win this first game, so we're not that worried about it. If they were looking to win that first game and they come away with a loss, do they panic and try and put out a lineup that they think is going to take game 2 without question, or do they stick to their game plan? I mean, if you're managing and you just saw your team get beaten like that, do you do anything differently, or do you stick with what you planned on with your lines to begin with? I think we might have lost, or at least we lost Dog for a little bit here. Yeah, he's away right now. I'll throw that out to anybody else. Does Detroit need to do anything different? Do they stick with their game plan, or do they need to shake things up after a 7-1 loss? We heard what Beth said, but Fort, let me get your thoughts on that. What do you do if you're a manager? Do you go with the same line you were already planning on going with?
I'll jump in here. This is Tucker. I think you got to go with your game plan. It's too early to be jumping ship on it. If it doesn't go well tonight, then I think you've got to audible and figure out what can you do differently tomorrow night. But tonight you've kind of got it in stone what you were going to do to change it up. Cost you 2 penalties, and you don't want to give these high-powered offenses the ability to have that advantage going into the game. I think you got to stick with your original game plan and try to go back to the locker room and talk it out and figure out what you guys didn't do so well, and maybe find a couple things that you did well that you want to take into the next game and increase your communication and find a way to win.
We're getting close to the 10 p.m. mark. Hopefully, we have a couple of streams to show you shortly, and we'll get to looking at some games. I know St. Louis is looking to get together here and get their guys going one more time. We'll try and bring you a feed from them this time, and we'll have another feed from the other game. I think we might pick up a Detroit feed for this next one. But we thank everybody for helping out and bringing us streams from Twitch and YouTube to provide us the live game action tonight on this the first night of the conference finals. Game 1 over for both teams. And as we look at the playoff scoreboard right now, you see Vancouver leading the series 1-0 with a 5-4 double overtime win over St. Louis. They were down 4-2 in this one in the first period, halfway through the first period. And that goes to say what Vancouver did defensively, giving up 4 goals pretty much halfway through the first and then shutting down St. Louis the rest of the way. Meanwhile, picking up an double overtime goal on a 2-on-1 opportunity, which they were trying to spring guys, and they finally were able to get a puck up front and get an odd man rush going. Meanwhile, Montreal's taking a 1-0 lead in their best-of-7 series with a 7-1 victory over Detroit. It was Montreal from the beginning, up 3-0 pretty quickly in this one, and Detroit struggled until the third before they finally put their first goal up there. So, a win is a win and a loss is a loss, guys. And I think at this point, that's I think Best said that earlier, and I think that's kind of the way you have to go about it. You need to just say, look, it's a loss. It doesn't matter if we lost 3-2, 7-1. It's a loss either way. Put it behind us and move on. And the hard part is getting guys to believe that. The good thing about this game is if you're putting different lines out there, those guys don't feel the pain of a loss like that. So it'll be interesting to see how Detroit comes back, who they come back with in this game. And in my mind, and Doc is back with us now too, in my mind, I almost feel like you want to use different lines in these first couple of games, because in these first 2 days, really, 2 different lines on the same night in case you have a 7-1 loss, you let that line rest, you put another line in, they don't feel the pain of losing that game by 6, and their mind is clear to go out there and do the job they're supposed to do.
Definitely a great strategy. I think you got to go into the night planning it that way, though. If you come out and you say, "I'm throwing my first line out there regardless, due to availability or whatever," you've got to stick with it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the strategy of having 2 lines go out there is probably the best. You've got to take advantage of your home ice as much as you can in these playoffs. And if you just throw out 1 line over and over again, it makes it pretty easy for the other team to predict when you're going to put out the next line. So, and then they can line match if they want to. And so, definitely better strategically to divide out your games and not necessarily let guys play all in one night. But sometimes availability in the playoff dictates that you do what you got to do. So it'll be interesting to see which lines come out in this next game.
Vancouver and St. Louis are gathering their guys in the locker room. Hopefully we'll have something for you for Detroit, Montreal soon.
And I'm still working on those lines right now. Hopefully I can get those to you right before the puck drops. And I've got Montreal's second line. I'm just trying to get Detroit's before I start talking about them.
I see I'm looking at Montreal's lineup. They've got big little guy at center, backhand jamboree lefty. So the front line, center, big little guy. Left wing is Dirty Your Dog. And right wing is Dick Fingers. I love these names. Lefty is backhand jamboree. Fat Matt looks like he's going to be on right D with Fapper in net for Montreal. That's what I'm seeing right now for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. So Vancouver looks like Vancouver's line 2 is going to be the Dip with Darren Pickles on right wing, Jay Malarkey on left wing, Mr. Malachi on lefty, and Wicked Kid, who's had a big first couple rounds on right D. And then they've got Loon in net. Jumping over to Louis Blues.
Now, is Wicked Kid and Outlaw Demo the same guy?
There's a stream, fellas.
I'm not 100% sure on that, Sibs.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as right D for Vancouver right now. So we'll hopefully have that for you shortly. We're going to have Hybrid Theories stream once again for Montreal and net. We may have a stream from Detroit as well. I know that Connor Thompson had mentioned that he'd probably be streaming second game. So if we can get a forward stream, I'd like to show that as well if we can. But we'll also be able to do a split screen also as we did in games 1. Again, as you see the scoreboard, Vancouver a double overtime win in that one, 5-4. Hard to believe that Vancouver can keep that kind of pace up every game with every line. Do they have that ability, guys, to be able to put out a fast-paced offensive line with a defense that's going to be able to make up when their forwards get caught up a little bit? What can Vancouver do line from line against St. Louis?
I was going to say, if they're able to do that, they have been the best kept secret in this playoffs because they have struggled offensively to be able to put that many points up. In fact, it's almost unheard of for them to be able to do that. So, I really don't expect them to be able to. And unfortunately for them, St. Louis's high-powered offense day in and day out has been able to get 4, 5, sometimes even 11 goals on you.
Right.
So Vancouver's going to have to play that tight defensive game, bend don't break, and then also and put up a few goals like they did in this first one.
Well, the next game's a Twitch.
The games, again, still close to getting together. Vancouver has pretty much everybody in their dressing room. I think they're close to go. We're hitting 10 p.m. right now. Montreal is almost ready. And still looking to see where Detroit is at this point here. But these games should be getting going in a minute or two. So we'll be with you with some more action. T-Sibs, Fort, Pucker, Dog Chow, Doc Marshmallow's with us, and Best There Is as well, hanging out with us tonight on the first night of the conference finals. Western Conference, so far Vancouver with a 1-0 lead. If they're able to take a second game here, Vancouver, how much of an issue is that going to be for St. Louis being down 2-0 in this series? Is it a big deal for them? They were, obviously a game is a different thing, but they were down early in this game. They certainly didn't give up. I imagine St. Louis has enough weapons where game after game they're going to cause you trouble. Is being down 2-0 in this series, if that happened tonight, is that a major issue for St. Louis?
I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, it's a major difference because when you have these guys that are able to win games night in and night out, they get frustrated when they lose games like this. And it's really easy for that locker room to become toxic. Now, the things that they have on their benefit, on their side is that they've got a calming presence in white knucklers who will help them rein that in. Who's top-notch player that everybody in the league and in this community respects. So he'll be able to rein it in, I suspect. But most teams, this would be a big, huge upset if Vancouver was able to find a way to win game 2. And that's what they need to do. If they want to have a chance to make the series go deep, they've got to put the pressure on St. Louis and get St. Louis out of their comfort zone.
Well, their game is about to start up here shortly, barring any disconnect. We should be seeing Vancouver and St. Louis here momentarily and get a chance to watch a game 2 that could be very interesting tonight. And again, we'll see if
you asked me earlier if that right D was Jay Bev. It looks like Vancouver needed a sub-wicket kid for Jay Bev, and so that will cost them. It'll cost them a penalty.
Interesting. We've seen a lot of first period penalties right off the face-off, where teams have had to take penalties a lot in the last round, and already we're going to see a couple in this round.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So
Those are clear, and the intention was to give the home ice advantage by making sure the guys had their lines in, and that the home ice would have the ability to line match or do what they wanted to do. And as a result, we decided to make it to where if the lines were changed in any way, shape, or form, it cost them a penalty. And so that's what we've been seeing in the beginning of these games.
I just want to comment that was a great idea to do that. That was a grand idea.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it.
No, seriously, like, it will prevent them from wanting to change their lineups last minute on you because they don't want to have to take that penalty.
Yeah, the lineups, it's a game of chess between the two owners, and, that's one thing I wanted to make them honor is the home ice advantage.
I like it.
And St. Louis taking the early 1-0 lead off the face-off. Good quick shot, but blocked. Good defensive play to block that shot, but a juicy rebound right in the slot, put away, and St. Louis early 1-0 lead here.
I knew they were going to come out pushing. Have to.
pitching this one to Cornell. Steps across that line. He's got that pass in the corner. Has that one and holds.
Interesting. Looking back on game one for St. Louis, it's Rapel was lefty. I'm pretty sure that he's normally a forward, and maybe that's why they seemed a little off. They had a winger on defense, and it's not the same position. It takes a little bit of different skills, and when you've got that much offensive firepower, I'm sure it was hard for him to stay at home and just, play defense. And I think that's what we saw in that first game. In the second game, it looks like we've got Josh the Boss on D for St. Louis and Nasty Uncle Dad. We saw them play some pretty solid defense. So I was expecting St. Louis to have a better game defensively and maybe not chase so much. But Vancouver's getting some good early chances. They need to bury one here if they can.
Always tough to maybe play out of position in a regular season game. You're at the semifinals here. You're at the conference finals. You're playing a good team. Playing out of position is a big deal. I mean, I don't care how much you've played in that position. It's still tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even going from left defense to right defense, I can speak from experience. When you hear somebody that says, I can play either, it just means they're not very good at either position more often than not, because they don't realize how much of a difference it takes to jump from one side to the other. Your spacing is off, your handedness is different. There's a lot of changes and a lot of nuances that when you get to one position that you work on and fine tune it, it's definitely, the difference when you're on the other side.
I can contest to that. Absolutely, he's absolutely right. I'm a natural center, so when I play wing, I feel completely out of my comfort game. Well, not comfort zone, but completely out of position.
Yeah, and it takes a little getting used to, and I'm kind of surprised that they chose to go with an extra winger on defense in the game one. It'll be interesting to see how St. Louis decides to finish out the lines for the rest of the series. I wonder if that was a one experiment and they decided that wasn't a great idea, let's do something different.
St. Louis taking a penalty. Vancouver now getting a power play opportunity. St. Louis has done well passing in this period so far, and the game seems to have slowed down a little bit. Not a lot, but they're not making wild passes. They're taking their chances when the opportunity is clear to make a pass. They're not going crazy just trying to get the puck to whoever's cutting into the net. They're taking their time, this St. Louis line, in this game too.
Yeah, and that's something I was hoping that they would adjust to last game. We're not used to seeing St. Louis force the puck. We're used to St. Louis just holding on to the puck until they get the absolute prime scoring chance, and then more often than not, when they do shoot it, they bury it.
They need to capitalize. They keep turning the puck over, Vancouver does. They need to capitalize on that power play.
And there's an opportunity. Oh, cross crease right in front, but not able to connect. And the other part of playing a little slower now is that, they've been able to, this St. Louis team has been able to play Vancouver a little tougher defensively, too.
And that's what we've known St. Louis for. They're back in their 5-back trap that we've been seeing in the first two rounds of the playoff. They got away from that in game one, and I'm glad to see them back to what got them this far.
First period over, you see St. Louis still holding on 1-0 lead. Certainly a slower game, a little more deliberate by both sides. Still good defense being played, though.
We'll be right back.
8-4. Vancouver 8 shots in the first period. That's a pretty good clip for one period. You know, you get 5. You get 5, you're happy in one period. So they're getting their opportunities, just not up close, not connecting on them, getting shots on net from outside. That's where St. Louis, I think, has been successful so far.
You know, like I had said in past broadcasts, Sibs, was, you know, anytime you put close to 30 pucks on net, you're almost guaranteed to win that game. And going back and looking at some of those stats from the last Vancouver game, I think Vancouver had, it was 28 or 29 shots on net. So, I mean, right there just proves my theory of, you know, you put more pucks on the net, you got a better likely chance of something taking a weird bounce and going in.
Yeah, definitely. The way EA works, the more momentum you get by putting pucks on the net definitely pays dividends, and you see it when those pucks just start trickling and making those weird bounces that just seem to go one team's way. It's from all that momentum built up, and so Vancouver's definitely going to have the advantage momentum-wise if they're able to keep the pressure up.
The Canucks prevailing on the faceoff. He lifted the stick and picked his puck. The poke check worked. Fires. Outstanding save. What magic even to get there and get the shot off.
You talk about cutting down the angle. Perfectly executed by the goaltender.
Gives it over to the point. Save there. Recollected. Shoots. Wonderful save. It didn't look like he had a thing to shoot at. Raymond's come around with his stick.
Kind of reminds me of Game 2 and Game 3 of Round 2 when it was low scoring across the board, and that's something that we're not used to seeing from St. Louis. It looks like they're very determined and diligent about what they're doing with the puck, and it's you're seeing it on both sides of the ice on offense and defense.
Snapping a pass to Cornell.
Montreal, Detroit having some issues trying to get the game started, so they've had to back out again. They're regrouping. Hopefully in a couple of minutes we'll be able to start looking at that one again. Meanwhile, it's still 1-0 St. Louis here, second period. 12 minutes left to go.
Moving behind and considering. Got it in his own end. Now it's directed to Cornell. In their own end, moving well. The Blues are at the wing in neutral ice. Boy, stick-to-stick artistry there. He's got it and moves ahead. Solid work there by Orr.
You know, while this game is going on, I'd like to welcome Midnight Fapper. A lot of you guys know him either as that or Jordan. He's doing our social. He's going to be the social media guy for the league. So I know he's got a couple different accounts for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram that you guys can go and follow for highlights, updates, and just kind of things that are going on around the league.
He's been posting those in Discord, so take a look there. And a lot of changes, a lot of good changes already seeing on Discord and with our social media within the first within the last few days, actually, of people doing some work on it. So a lot of good advancements coming with communication and places where you can go find stuff about the league. So really looking forward to this next season and seeing what people are are able to go and look at with league information and just with communication. It's always good when you're able to improve all of that. See Vancouver still struggling to get something offensively going. St. Louis is doing a pretty good job of clogging the middle. And Vancouver's defense still doing a good job in front of their own net.
Yeah, and that's what we've been used to seeing is St. Louis finding a way to get those passes through, even when the defense is standing there. They're able to put a little touch on the puck that a lot of guys just, struggle to have without turning it over. Um, and that's another Hail Mary for Vancouver, which we saw them being able to connect with in the first game, and now they're struggling to connect with it. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to dump the puck like that.
Oh, he's been looking for that hit all night.
I think St. Louis is trying to keep one man forward, trying to do a one-man forecheck. And there's a good shot from the point, a deflection, and St. Louis now a 2-0 lead. They're not overly forechecking. They're sending one guy in, but they're not going crazy chasing the puck, causing enough of a disruption. And that time it helped to make an opportunity there, put St. Louis up 2-0 now.
And iPass is playing exactly how I like to see a center play. He's not getting too deep. He's staying above the circle, so that means he's back to help out on defense. Vancouver's going to find it real tough to get through this three-man defense. And actually, more often than not, St. Louis has got 5 men back. So I love the way iPass is playing center this game. He's staying at home. He seems comfortable. Definitely a different look from what we saw in Game 1.
Montreal and Detroit underway. 16:40 left to go. No score in the first period.
As the second period winds down there, I don't know if anybody else seen it, but that whistle, did the puck go through the boards again?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a little ridiculous.
I was going to say, it seems as if EA is having a bit of a problem keeping the puck on the ice tonight.
Take a look at that Detroit-Montreal game right now. Get you another overhead shot. We thank Connor Thompson for providing a feed here. Take a look at this one for a little bit. We'll get back to the Canucks and Blues game. Right now, the Dip is in the penalty box. He's going to be serving 2 minutes here. So St. Louis on the power play as they start the third. Meanwhile, here in the first, you see no score. Detroit-Montreal. I definitely think, we saw this, guys, with Minnesota and St. Louis last series. Minnesota got beaten 7-4 in the first game, really struggled defensively, and they absolutely decided to clamp down and make it really tough for St. Louis to do anything offensively, and it was helpful. Detroit, playing a little bit more cautiously defensively. Everybody's coming back, and they're not trying to make crazy passes. So far, nobody's taking any chances. Detroit gets an opportunity there to maybe do something with it, but not playing a much more defensive game, really trying to stay back and not let anybody from Montreal walk in.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump back on St. Louis real quick. Another interesting adjustment St. Louis made is in Game 1, they had Hi, I'm new to NHL at center. In Game 1 to Game 2, they originally had him playing center again, but that first game didn't go well enough, so St. Louis adjusted, and that's why we're seeing I pass to score in center, and he seems a lot more comfortable than Hi, I'm new to NHL. To me, it seems like Hi, I'm new is definitely more of a winger style, and passes versatility is showing that he's able to play both positions fairly well.
And St. Louis, as you were saying, that went up 3-0. I believe Pass also with another goal on that play. Just having another great game, and again moving in on offense. And he scores again. Now 4-0 St. Louis. They are really controlling this one. Vancouver looked like they were playing a lot better defensively, but iPass has all 4 St. Louis goals right now as they lead Vancouver 4-0.
You got to give St. Louis's ownership credit for making that adjustment, seeing the problem. They've definitely stepped it up on both sides of the ice in Game 2, and they definitely went back to what we're used to seeing them do. It was good. It was a great adjustment by whoever did the lines tonight.
Vancouver looked to have scored a goal here, but it's being waved off. I'm not sure if it's going to be judged on or that's the call. I'm not sure where that was an issue. It didn't look like it was a high stick anywhere, but it's being waved off, so still 4-0 St. Louis.
And that's so disheartening when you're down by 4 goals and you finally score and it gets waved off. It just takes all the wind out of your sails.
Keep an eye on this Detroit-Montreal game here. We've got a couple of period difference here, so we'll be watching a bulk of that one after the third period of the St. Louis-Vancouver game. But we'll get back to that. We'll watch that one to the end, and then we'll get a lot of the Detroit-Montreal game to finish out tonight's coverage.
I can't find their stream.
Which one? The Detroit?
Yeah. I click on it. It takes me to an old video.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, well, that's one of the bad things about doing YouTube, because it changes every time unless you study that link and make it one link. But every time Connor Thompson's restarted, the link has changed. So, and he restarted like 3 times. So a little difficult there. Let's go back to the St. Louis-Vancouver game. You see 8:40 left to go in the third. St. Louis up 4-0. Let's see what Vancouver can do to rally here. And looks like a timeout being taken. And that game will come back in a second here. We'll go back to the start of the second, Detroit and Montreal. And so far, Detroit being able to play a good defensive game. Much more cautious than certainly that first game. But, this also plays into Montreal's hands. If they can not have a deficit, they have a good chance because their defense is always pretty solid.
Yeah, and they definitely seem to have the higher powered offense out of this series. So, yeah, low scoring games definitely do play to their advantage if they take it to overtime, because it seems like they're going to have the better advantage of getting that extra goal.
Get you back over that Vancouver-St. Louis game here.
Looks like Detroit.
Moving it now in the defensive zone. Raymond skating to neutral zone. Grab that pass in the neutral zone. He regathered it. Brings a shot. Great save at the edge of the crease.
Looked like the net was open for a second, but he shut it down.
The Blues have it along the side at mid-ice. Tripped up on the play, and there will be a penalty. Vancouver's got 2 on this one for tripping. Defensive zone win. Still held in. Around through the corner right now. Carries it to the corner. Oh, he'll pay for that. Watch out, a big hit.
Terry's had a pretty narrow focus for much of this last part of the game. Things have not gone very well for his team, but he's been very physical throughout.
And he'll keep the broadcast going like a play-by-play. There he is.
There we go. Yeah. Sorry, we lost you guys. Got some storms. Got some storms moving through here, so I think we may have. Hopefully, we won't have too many disconnects, but we had a minor one there on PlayStation anyway. So sorry, I lost you guys for a second, but we're still watching Vancouver and St. Louis. And so far, it really has been all St. Louis in this game. Vancouver getting a couple of chances there, but 2 minutes left to go in the third. Looks like St. Louis is on their way to tying this series up.
Made that work for him in goal.
Yeah, that's what St. Louis wanted to do for sure. They set the tone in this second game, and they never let up. They want to do this for the rest of the series and find a way to win in 5. They don't want to let Vancouver hang around any longer than they have to.
Vancouver, let them hang around, they're going to get deadly. Although, St. Louis shut them down in this game.
St. Louis gets their man back. We're at full strength.
Really a pretty solid defensive, and I'm not sure thought we'd be saying this necessarily after game 1, but a really solid defensive showing for St. Louis in this one. Up until that goal.
Oh, that's my bad. I said something. Shit. My bad.
Way to go, Sips.
No, I'll take blame for that. That's my fault.
What an interesting goal. He goes, L2 action, backhand, and finds a way to tuck it short side. The goalie wants that one back.
Oh, yeah.
Vancouver's getting a little physical here. We'll see if they're just trying to, kind of change the pace a little bit. Even though the game's already handily over, they're definitely getting way more physical. We'll see if they take that into game 3.
We'll be kicking over to Detroit-Montreal shortly, and Detroit has just put themselves on the scoreboard. 5:15 left to go in the second. 1-0 Red Wings.
This is going to be a hell of a series, boys.
Get a lead in that one. Vancouver trying to make a little bit of noise here. Struggling. An eye pass. Again, another goal. I'm sorry, no, that was not eye pass. Thought it was. They're going to call a timeout in this one. And tell you what, that will cause us to switch over to the other game and take a look at this one while that Vancouver-St. Louis game has a few seconds left. Pretty much over. 5-1 St. Louis. And Montreal tying it up.
The Canadiens are terrific in getting this game tied up. And we still have playing time left in the second and all of the third.
Neither team is giving up much in the way of room or scoring chances. Every inch of the ice is being contested. It's been a pretty good.
I tell you what, these jerseys are kind of throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, Montreal's gone with these black jerseys.
Trying to work forward. Pitching this one to Davis. He got corked on that.
I think as much as guys want, to have the stock jerseys, I think that the concept of being able to create, your own custom jersey, but sticking to kind of the basics of team colors, I think it's a huge thing. I think it kind of expresses, kind of how the owner is and, kind of what they prefer, because, you see a lot of guys, obviously they stick with, the standard colors or, the standard design. But I think, having that ability to customize and kind of make it your own team, I think that's huge.
St. Louis.
I'm all for.
Go ahead.
Good. I was just going to say I'm all for the customization and club and league. I really like to see it standardized. We're representing a simulation league, and as much as I'd like to see some hot pink out there, I'd rather just see the normal team colors. And I know we talked about keeping the team colors, but that's my personal preference.
Yeah, the neon green or neon orange hurt this old man's eyes watching these games sometimes. It's a bit of a nightmare. Yeah. Especially when they go with the same color for numbers. You have no idea who is who.
Yeah.
Well, 2 periods by the boards in this one, and this game 2 between Detroit and Montreal is being hotly contested after 2 periods. A 1-1 score right now. Be back to that game in a second. Meanwhile, it was a St. Louis 5-1 victory over Vancouver. I pass with 4 goals in that game. And St. Louis really playing some tremendous defense until halfway, with less than a minute left to go in that third period, finally giving up a goal. But certainly all St. Louis, the kind of game I'm thinking they want to play. They don't have to, in my mind, they don't have to go full bore offensively. They can play relatively offensive, play a little more defensively, have the wingers come back and let the center forecheck. And I'm wondering if they're going to do that with their other lines as well. One guy forecheck and make a break here and there and get enough offense while playing better defense.
I think that's what makes them so versatile and so lethal is their ability to adjust. If the game is getting out of hand, they can almost just have fun like it's a drop-in and just start putting up some crazy amount of goals on you. On the other hand, if you make the series tight, they're able to adjust and find a way to tighten up defensively, and they still got the offensive firepower that they can bury the puck several times. And that's what makes them so tough to beat, and that's the reason why they're favorites going into the finals. And jumping back onto the Detroit game here, this is a must-win for Detroit. They've got their, some of their better players. If they find themselves down on this one, I think Montreal is going to have this series a strong advantage in this series.
Good goaltending on both sides. And able to keep this game at 1-1. Some good opportunities close in that were good saves on both goaltenders. So better defense, better goaltending in this game, certainly for Detroit. And they've been able to hold off Montreal for the most part. But again, how often did we see Montreal do that last series? It's kind of going along for Ottawa, and then all of a sudden Montreal just busts out, goal here, goal there, great defense, and they win the game. I mean, that's what they're capable of doing, and this is not a big issue for Montreal to be tied up here in the third period. Even if they go down one, they have the capability of coming back and tying it and going to overtime and win it.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of this in the pregame. Montreal averages 4 goals a game, so them only putting up 1 goal is atypical. They are a high-powered offense that finds a way to put the puck in the back of the net, and they're not a team that gives up a whole lot of goals because they're a really solid defensive trap team. So, yeah, you're absolutely right in that they'll be able to get a quick one back if Detroit just finds a way to score here. So they're definitely comfortable in this situation.
You know what's astonishing about Montreal is that Jordan got that team like halfway through the season, and he built what you see now in half a season.
That's absolutely insane, and that goes to show you how much a quality owner can make or break a team. Montreal, I think, started off with something stupid like 4-25, and then they switch owners, and next thing you know, they make it to the playoffs just barely, and they're playing with the best teams in this league, and they're absolutely turned this team around.
Sure did.
Definitely, if he didn't get to owner of the year, maybe he should get some looks for next season for sure.
Or best improved team of the year.
Absolutely.
Montreal pressing hard and finally getting an opportunity and putting one past the goaltender at 7:16 left to go in the third. The Canadiens up 2-1 now. Let's see what Detroit can do to come back and tie this up. Not much time left, though.
This puts Detroit in an uncomfortable situation. They aren't the most offensive team that you've seen. They do have some high-quality guys out here, and I'd like to see them find a way to put the puck in the back of the net and take this to overtime. But here, Montreal's getting another quality chance after quality chance. Detroit's going to have to find a way to bury one if they want to get out of this one alive.
And Montreal's winning the majority of the faceoffs too, so they got the puck possession.
Great observation.
I'm a center. I always look at faceoffs. Even if I'm not playing, I'm still looking like, oh, what's the faceoffs at?
It's like, how can I beat this guy next time I face him?
Absolutely.
This game is going to wind down and be close right to the final horn.
Now, is that Burmeister in net for Detroit? Is that what we confirmed there, Pucker?
Let me switch back over to that and I'll double check.
Despite being down 2-1, Detroit's gotten some really good goaltending that's kept them in this.
Yeah, it looks like the lineup for Detroit in net is the Burmeister. Now, would this not be considered ragging the puck?
Has to be. You know what? I saw that too. It has to be 10 seconds. Well, if it's more than 10 seconds, it's considered regular puck.
Under a minute left to go. Montreal looking to try and close this out. Detroit coming back. And Montreal now a penalty on Detroit. Bad timing. The puck is exiting the offensive zone and a trip is called. And now a timeout being taken on this play. So tough play to cause a tripping. You see time on attack, shots, hits, all relatively close. A little more time on attack, I think, for Montreal in this one, but not much. The stats have been pretty close in this one. Just, again, Montreal getting an opportunity, pouncing on it, and taking advantage of it. So we'll see what Detroit can do. They're going to have to take some chances and make something happen to get back in this.
Tough for Detroit to find a way to.
Oh, there he is.
Last few seconds ticking away here. And Montreal will take a 2-0 victory here in this game. And
a 2-1 victory.
A 2-1 victory. Sorry about that.
2-0 series lead.
And so far, Montreal has certainly a better played game for Detroit in that one, without question. But Montreal able to hold on there. You see 12 to 11 shots on goal, the difference. So really an interesting game where Detroit was able to play better and defensively and really do more there. But, still not able to get a lot of offensive chances. This Montreal defense, I mean, we talked about them, but maybe not getting all the credit they deserve with how they played in these first couple of games and how good they really are. I mean, we did talk about it a bit, but I still think we probably all thought Detroit would maybe at least come away with a 1-1 tie after this game, but not the case. They have struggled in these first two games, and right now Montreal really doing a hell of a job taking a 2-0 series lead in this one. What are we thinking on this one, Chow? Is Montreal that good, or are they just opportunistic? They know how to play their teams. What are they doing right in these last couple of weeks in the playoffs? Well, anyone can answer. Yeah, Dog may not be there.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so we were kind of talking about lineup strategies at the beginning of this round and in the pregame, And Detroit took the stance that they wanted to switch up their line. So they have a completely different line from game 1 to game 2. Montreal does the exact opposite. They keep their first line in from game 1 to game 2 and win both games. They absolutely needed to win both games. So now it's up to Detroit's team to find a way to win against Montreal's second line. And if they're able to, then they might make the series go to 7 like we expected. I thought that this was a worst case scenario for Detroit. They've got their first line in game 2, and Montreal finds a way to beat them. But really, that was just a first line versus first line. So that's not the end of the world because that first line's now going to get a chance to face. I mean, the second line's going to face off with the second line, and if they're able to steal that one back in Detroit's favor, then we got a chance to go back to 7. So this one's looks handedly by Montreal, but I think that we could still see a game 7 when it's all said and done.
You know, I remember, if I remember correctly, last Thursday, Detroit had lost a game, and you know, we did a live look in on some of their commentary, and they got real down on themselves. You know, kind of real negative, and you know, they ended up turning it around. You know, I don't know what their chat was like tonight, obviously. If it was a little more negative or positive, but then again, you know, obviously Montreal came out and showed that, you know, there's a reason they're here, and not to sleep on them. And you know, I think that Montreal really, you know, they really kind of did what they had to do. Detroit's got an uphill climb now, and I think that that's going to be a big deciding factor on whether or not this series continues or not.
Yeah, great points.
Yeah, I mean, 2-0 is you know, it's a big climb, but you know, is Montreal's defense that good where Detroit's going to struggle to find ways to beat them?
You know, from line to line, I think consistently Montreal has played a really solid trap. Their offense has been consistent again. Doesn't seem to matter which line's on the ice. They find a way to get 3 or 4 goals a game. So both lines are really solid. And so, I think it's going to be tough for Detroit to find a way back into this one. But I think they definitely have the potential and would love to see this series stretch out.
Head over to the other series and talk about what St. Louis has been able to do in the second game and coming back and making a series of it after losing that one in double overtime in game 1. Able to really play a much more balanced game to take game 2, and of course that series tied up at 1 apiece. And at this point right now, what are we thinking is the key here for St. Louis? Is it what they did in game 2? Is that a blueprint for what they need to do moving forward, or is this is it game by game, lineup by lineup? They have to figure out who they're playing first before they figure out a strategy.
I think if St. Louis plays like they did in game 1, any game like they played in game 1, then they'll find themselves in a shootout against Vancouver. St. Louis looked uncomfortable in that first game, and I think it was because some guys were out of position. So if St. Louis can find a way to get the guys back in the positions that they've been doing, that they know and that they're skilled at, I think Vancouver's going to have a real tough time winning any more games in this series. I think St. Louis is going to find a way to win it in 5 now.
I think, I think that St. Louis, they played a good game. That second game, I think Vancouver just needs to take that second game and kind of fall back to how they played in the first game, fast-paced, quick passes, kind of, hold the puck, don't try to rush things, really work it around like they were. And, if it takes Vancouver, 3 more games of double overtime to win the series. I think that maybe that's just what they got to do. As I said in the pregame that Vancouver needed to come out and make a statement. In the first game, I think that they made their statement. They made it known that, look, we're here because we belong here. We're not here because it was handed to us. Mm-hmm. And that's that was something that a lot of people thought was, well, Vancouver's only here because of this, or Vancouver's only there because of that. And I don't really think it's that. I think it's they worked hard. They played hard throughout that series, and some unfortunate events had happened, but I think that Vancouver is, they're a strong team, and I think that they could, figure out a way to come out with a win here.
We've got Midnight Fapper joining us here for this post game, and listen, congrats on for the first night of the conference finals. Your guys look to be pretty comfortable out on the ice all night long.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had a game plan, and we spoke about it before. We weren't really too stressed out about conference finals and having a chance at getting to that cup, and really taking an early lead. And we just went out there and did what we've done, and we just stressed the same thing we've always been stressing, which is just make them play our game.
Yeah, you guys did an excellent job of making them play your game, and you've been able to do that in both round 1 and round 2. Looking forward to game 3 and game 4, what do you look to continue on and carry into those games that you think that will let you be successful tomorrow night as well?
Honestly, my biggest thing I think is defense. As long as our defensive core has been the most consistent throughout the whole entire playoffs. Not to take anything away from my offense, because I'm pretty sure my offense is, scoring. Heck, I don't even know. They're putting up a lot of points on the board as well. But
absolutely,
I feel like we came in knowing what we were going to get from our defense, and we're leaning on them to start for them to put out solid games, and our offense just kind of followed.
Anything about Detroit that concerns you at all? Clearly, you guys had a great first game. Everything worked. Your defense, as usual, but you got a lot of good offensive output. You've held them to 1 goal in the first 2 games here. Is that something that's realistic that you think you can continue to do against these guys, or is there still a lot of concern for what they can do offensively?
I don't believe it's not realistic, but I'm not going to sit here and hope that that's what keeps happening, because I really think out of all the teams we've played so far, Detroit does have the most potent offense. It's just they've kind of struggled to get going, and we're kind of trying to keep it that way. We're not trying to let them show that they can score again, because that we don't want to get in a shootout with them. Even though if we have to, so be it. But we definitely would prefer it to stay this way.
Midnight, you chose to play both the same lines in game 1 and game 2. How do you like your matchup with your next line to playing in game 3 and game 4? Detroit took the other stance, and they've each of their line played 1 game, so you'll face both those lines again tomorrow, I would presume. How do you like your chances in game 3 and game 4? Do you think you can close this series out in 4?
My 2 lines, I don't really consider them line 1 and line 2. I kind of consider them, line 1, just both of them. And during the season, I'd actually never really had any set lines. I would change guys, but just whenever they were available, they'd just play. And we've stuck with the same game plan throughout the whole entire playoffs so far. We've played the same line each day, and so far it's been working perfectly fine. I like it because I feel like teams don't really get a good idea of what we have to offer for both games. So it's kind of, we kind of know what Detroit's got to offer now. We saw a little bit of it, so now we can kind of plan accordingly. And they've yet to see my other line, so they kind of have that surprise factor of like, well, what are we going to get? What are we going to face?
And again, we talked a lot about it in the pregame, and certainly you guys proved it tonight in the first two games. Your defense is, it's not like it's an overwhelming defense, but it just seems so structurally sound all the time. Lanes are not wide open. There's not guys who are standing all alone waiting for one-timers. What can you describe the way you guys play defense? What is it that makes it so difficult for other teams to find opportunities?
Yeah, we keep it simple. We're not going to sit there and when you start facing the better offensive, players, they can dangle, they can make you miss, they can, get in alone, but we just keep it simple. We don't chase the puck. We don't, we help out when help's needed, but we don't, go and chase a puck and then leave our role, leave our guy open, leave the guy that we're supposed to be covering or the lane that we're supposed to be covering. And the defense in particular has played a lot together, so they are pretty comfortable with each other, and really not much is needed for them to talk about or say while they're playing because they just are really comfortable with the team and who they're playing with.
One thing I always like to ask people is, when you're playing playoff hockey, it's just a different environment. How do you handle the playoff hockey nerves that come with playing in these high-pressure games? Or do you even feel any pressure from these games?
I feel like I'd be lying, if I didn't say obviously, it changes the aspect of the game, and it even though we're all sitting in front of a TV with a controller in our hands, it's got a different feel to it.
Absolutely.
And I think we can all agree on that. But I think Fort can vouch for us. He was in our chat a little bit earlier before the games. We're not really a team that's going to be out there stressing out about one specific game or one specific team we're playing. We're just in the end we're just guys getting on to play a game together.
You said that, and I definitely got that vibe from just hanging out in your guys' party for the 20, 25 minutes I was in there. Jordan, so we mentioned it earlier in the broadcast that you are now part of our media team and the social media. If you could kind of fill us in on, what are some things to look out for and, kind of give us your page names so that way, guys can go and follow them and, keep getting updated, get more information about the league if they're not already playing in it.
Yeah, so I did just take over kind of the whole deal with social media, and we have a Twitter and a Instagram currently, and a Facebook as well. And I know the Twitter and Instagram have the same handles, which would be WEHL official. All one word, no spaces, no underscores, no dashes, just WEHL official. And what we're trying to do there is we're just trying to, keep people involved if they're they're not in the playoffs right now, they can stay involved with the league and kind of see what's going on without really, taking a look at the Discord or without being in touch with their team. And from there, I'll probably be using the Twitter maybe a little bit more because it's more text associated, but I'll be using the Instagram and Twitter to kind of keep the league updated with big news, like signups or trades or awards and then mixed in with that, I'll be adding a couple highlight videos here and there, like maybe some top 10s, just some highlights from games during the week, and some hype videos. And we're just looking to keep people involved and make this league as fun as it can be, because why not?
Yeah, I know that you said hype videos. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have already seen it, the people that are watching, but on the channel there's a hype video that Thapper has actually made, and watching it the first time was, it was kind of surreal because, at the beginning of the season it was two guys that wanted to do media, and we started broadcasting through a PlayStation. and that was it. And to see your hype video and to, see all the highlights and everything, and then to watch it a second time, chills. You get chills from it, listening to the commentary over the games, and it's kind of surreal to kind of see how far that all of this has grown in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, no, it's it's been quite a ride. I've enjoyed it just, as being an owner and, also now being a part of the media itself. It's been fun to see this league really just, feed off of its, success.
All right, Fab. Well, we appreciate you coming on here. Congrats on a great night one here of the conference finals, and we may talk to you tomorrow night if you can actually sweep it.
Possibly, man. Yeah, I'll just, too bad you won't be able to see that Dick Fingers in the lineup again. I got a kick out of you laughing at that.
Oh man.
And I already took a audio recording of that, and we're gonna throw that in our team chat for a while.
That'll be fun.
Messing around with that. Because
Cool.
we all got a kick out of that. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I vote for changing that name, but that's just me.
Hey, from what I heard, I heard you enjoyed it. So
yeah.
It sounded like you really got a kick out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. We appreciate it, bud. Best of luck.
Bro. Yeah. Have a good one.
You got it. Midnight Fapper with
Thank
us
you
on
very
the post game here. We appreciate his time. You got it. And let's close it out here, guys. A couple of interesting games tonight. That game one, St. Louis and Vancouver. Certainly double overtime. Again, probably one of the best games we've seen so far. And the fact that St. Louis came back, second game, really played their game. And on the other side, it's been all Montreal. What can Detroit do to come back and make a dent in this tomorrow? If they only come away with one win tomorrow, they really have their backs against the wall. So that series is, it's all up to Detroit at this point right now. That's my takeaway from tonight. A couple of really close games and a great double overtime evening. Pucker, what's your takeaway from tonight?
Game one for Vancouver was a one-off. I don't think we'll see that again. Definitely love the way St. Louis was able to adjust and come back in game two. Vancouver is able to win another game, and good for them. But they got to prove me wrong first off. Really impressed with the way Montreal come out on their series. Montreal actually may be the best team to match up with against St. Louis and give St. Louis a run for their money in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think they're definitely the favorite going in. We just saw how the first line matched up against first line. From my perspective, I know Midnight said that Montreal doesn't have a first line, but from my perspective, their first line matched up against Detroit's first line and was able to handle them pretty well. So I think that Montreal definitely has the advantage and will win this series.
Doc, from what you were able to see tonight, where do you think the games 3 and 4 are going tomorrow?
Oh, you're waking me up. All right.
That implies we were putting you to sleep, dude. So that's not nice at all.
Wow.
This will be the last time you get to hear Doc Marshmallow on a broadcast. Hope you enjoyed it.
Doc, I appreciate it.
Detroit is honestly in trouble. They need to kickstart something, because I heard you guys saying earlier while I was cooking that Detroit finally found a way to score or something. Finally found the way to get the puck in the net, and that's not a good look for the playoffs. Not at all. So no. I don't know. It's Montreal is hot right now, and I don't know what Detroit's going to have to do to come back from this, but I've seen weirder things in the playoffs, so it should be exciting. I know Detroit has the talent there to pull something off. If they can get one win tomorrow, like game 3, they might be able to ride that momentum. I say they need to basically come out swinging, though. Absolutely.
And Bess, what's your take after this first night of the conference finals?
Well, I think Detroit is going to need a miracle. I think that's my opinion. If they change, if they don't play like they did tonight, then they might be able to pull it out. Who knows? But I don't see it.
Fort, I'll give you the last word.
Oh man, really, Detroit needs to come out. Like Doc said, I think Detroit needs to come out swinging. They need to prove, kind of how Montreal has, and Vancouver. They need to prove why they're here. I think the guys need to regroup, get on early tomorrow, kind of warm up the hands, and get back at it early. And as for the St. Louis and Detroit, or the St. Louis and Vancouver series, I think I think Vancouver did everything that I said that they needed to do. They came out swinging, they made a point, and hopefully they can kind of figure some things out throughout these next couple of games, and maybe even take home the series.
All right, guys. Thanks again. A lot of fun as usual. We had a blast covering these games tonight. We'll probably see most of you tomorrow. Correct?
Shit,
Absolutely. I'll be here.
Fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Blast.
You guys are good at this good shit.
Appreciate
I'll
it.
be on standby.
Okay.
Definitely. I hate the show. I'll come back. I ain't got no problem with bullshitting the show. This is fun shit.
All right, well, we'll see you guys all tomorrow night. Best of luck. Thanks to everybody for joining the broadcast tonight. For Dog Chow, Fort, Best There Is for joining us tonight. Doc Marshmallow staying awake long enough to be part of the broadcast. And Lucky Bucker, again, for providing a lot of good data tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night for games 3 and 4 right here on the WEHL YouTube channel. You've been watching the World E-Hockey League on YouTube. The conference finals, games 1 and 2, are final. And it is right now St. Louis and Vancouver tied at 1. Meanwhile, Montreal leading Detroit 2-0 in that best-of-7 series. We will see you tomorrow night. Same time, 8:30 for the pregame. Have a good night, everyone.